Hey, thanks so much to Aniba for sponsoring this video. So the Batman Arkham series might finally be on the road to a major comeback, and there are more signs pointing to it right now than there's ever been in years. If you were concerned that the studio behind the greatest superhero games ever made was about to get shut down after the disaster that was their last game, well, I think this video should serve as a massive sigh of relief. WB has gone on record confirming that a return to their biggest franchises is happening, and on top of that, we found out that Rocksteady has been quietly working on a Batman game again behind the scenes this entire time. So today we're going to talk about how far along the Arkham reboot is, who could step up as the new voice of the Dark Knight, and when we can actually expect to get our hands on this game. We have a lot to cover. Check the chapters for easy viewing, and let's dive in. Okay, let's start off with the source itself, because this is where it all begins. JB Perrette, CEO and president of global streaming and games at WB Discovery, sat down and made it crystal clear that WB is done sitting on its gaming portfolio. He stated that WB is committed to returning its biggest franchises to glory, and the real fruits of that will be in 2027 and 2028. Now, when you look at the franchises WB has in its vault, the list is pretty short, but the names are massive. Obviously, Harry Potter, there's Lord of the Rings, and the Batman Arkham game. Now, when an executive at that level uses the word returning, that's corporate speak for them basically saying it's either a sequel, a reboot, or a full revival already in motion, which, as I've talked about on this channel many times, according to the latest rumors from Jason Schreier and other, insiders like that, a Batman Arkham game has already been greenlit. Now, here's where we start to connect the dots, because that quote alone is not the full story. Rocksteady, the team behind the original Arkham trilogy, Asylum, City, and Night, spent over 7 years in development hell on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Yes, we're talking a whopping 7 years. And of course, we all know how that landed. The game launched to brutal reception. It was a failure at launch, and it became yet another cautionary tale about what happens to a studio when it abandons its identity just to chase that live service trend that nobody wanted. Well, that era is over. The Suicide Squad release was the writing on the wall, which I'm sure a lot of the devs know this, but we all wanted a single player narrative driven Batman game, or maybe even just a regular single player narrative, but the lesson was expensive, but it was learned. Now let's talk about the development timeline. How far along is the game actually? Well, according to industry insiders, they strongly suggest that a new Batman Arkham project was greenlit by WB somewhere around 2024, which, think about what that means practically. Greenlit doesn't mean a trailer's coming next month or anything like that. Them greenlighting the game means the studio got the approval for the budget and assembled the core team with a locked-in creative direction. They pitched it to WB, and WB gave the green light. So 2024 was effectively acting as the starting line. Well, let's talk about the overall development math real quick. Suicide Squad took 7+ years to develop, but that project was a disaster. Multiple delays internally. I'm sure that they probably attempted to pivot, but then they had to repivot back to live service. Now, a traditional single-player Batman Arkham game at Rocksteady is completely different. They have the engine knowledge, they know the combat system DNA, they know the combat, and they've perfected it over the last decade. Now, there's probably a lot of the developers that have left since then, but they know about the core foundation. The architecture has already been built, it's in the studio's muscle memory, so really they're not fully starting from scratch. Essentially, they're going back to what they know the best. And with that being said, a reasonable development estimate for a focused single-player Arkham sequel or reboot, assuming that the 2024 green light actually happened with no pivots or anything like that, puts us around a 4 to 5 year development cycle, which that is way tighter than the window that Suicide Squad got, but again, completely different scopes. But that 7 years plus was realistic for a studio that's unfamiliar with the, the clear mandate of doing a live service game. So if we do a little bit of math, 2024 plus 4 to 5 years lands us squarely between 2028 and 2029. And my honest prediction, well, I don't think we're going to see this game officially until late 2027 at the absolute earliest. And a far more likely scenario puts the reveal at a major showcase sometime in 2028. So your Summer Game Fest, your State of Plays, and possibly, Xbox showcases, or possibly the Game Awards, you know what I'm saying? One of those showcases, it puts that in. A release in late 2028 is optimistic in my opinion, but it's possible. I think the release window of early 2029 is the safe bet, but if it means shipping the game finished and optimized, I will take 2028, 2030 all day. I would much rather wait than get another Arkham Knight PC port situation on launch day. We are not going over that again. Okay, so now here's the detail that I think flew under a lot of people's radar, and honestly, it makes me even more optimistic about the entire thing surrounding Arkham Reboot. Well, that new Lego Batman game that was absolutely peak that dropped in May? Well, big shout out to VGC, who went digging through the credits, because it turns out Rocksteady themselves were secretly co-developers on that game. We were talking to 24 people from Rocksteady, including a producer, a designer, and a bunch of their senior programmers and artists, were actively working on Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. And it honestly goes even deeper than that, because WB Games Montreal, the team behind Arkham Origins and and Gotham Knights, well, they just so happen to also have credits on it as well. So basically the entire brain trust at WB all kind of came together to work on this Lego game, which is one of the reasons why it kept many of us looking at the Lego Batman game and like thinking, hold up, wait a second, like look at this combat loop, look at the gameplay. It feels just like an Arkham game to an extent. Well, that was obviously not an accident as well. The free flow combat, the gadgets, the grappling, well, that was all pulled straight from the Arkham DNA because the actual Arkham people had their hands on it. Now, here's why all of this matters for the reboot. Let me be real for a second. A studio that just got humbled from their last release, quietly going back to, work on what they do best. Well, that's the kind of thing that I want to see before they swing for the fences on a full Batman game. So to me, it kind of tells me that they haven't fully lost the thing that made them special. They've just, been keeping it warm in the oven. But now let's get into some of the speculation territory because this is where things get genuinely exciting. One of the biggest questions the community has been asking since the reports surfaced is simple. Who is going to be the voice of Batman? And the answer, at least in terms of who makes the most sense creatively and historically, is almost certainly Roger Craig Smith. He's the one who voiced Batman in Arkham Origins, and in my opinion, his performance was outstanding. He brought a younger and less refined Bruce Wayne to life, a Batman who was still figuring out the line between justice and violence, and I thought his work was just so great in that game. I think it deserves all the credit in the world. I still feel like Origins is just overshadowed by the Rocksteady entries. I think that game deserves way more respect than it gets. Now, if the new game follows the same tonal direction that the franchise's history suggests, and since it is a Rocksteady project rather than a WB Montreal one, I think the conversation has to be had about Kevin Conroy's legacy and how they handle it. Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman for decades across the animation and the Arkham series, unfortunately passed away in 2022. It's still super sad. So I think Rocksteady has like two realistic paths forward. They bring in Roger Craig Smith as a familiar face, or they decide to cast an entirely new actor for a new era. I mean, I really just think it has to be Roger Craig Smith. It just makes the most sense. Now, as for the story, let's be real here. The possibilities are massive. This is Batman we're talking, and if the reboot is just like a complete soft reboot rather than a continuation, then that should make things pretty simple. I think it would be cool to have like a fresh entry point that honors the Arkhamverse without being shackled to every story thread from Knight. At the end of the day, I just want a good Batman story, and if they can do that, then I'm happy. But here's my take on the situation. The thing that has me the most hyped and I think the most cautious about all of this news is not really the game itself, it is the context surrounding it. WB has spent the last few years making decisions that have genuinely damaged the trust in the gaming community, and then you couple that with the fact that, WB is about to get purchased by Paramount, so who knows what happens after that. Things could go either really great or it could go terribly. Now, JB Perrett's quote about returning franchises is exactly what we needed to hear, but the quote is not a game. Like, it's not going to be in our hands. What we need to see, in my opinion, in what I'll be watching for, is with Rocksteady's first actual gameplay reveal. Because that right there is when we will know if WB learned their lesson or not. Will there be live service elements that are trapped inside and just dressed in Arkham clothing? Or is this going to be the real thing? A handcrafted, single-player, story-driven Batman experience that is built by people who genuinely love the franchise. I am cautiously and aggressively optimistic about this. Like, it could either be the best thing ever or the worst thing ever. The Arkham series is the gold standard of superhero gaming. I love the Arkham series. It's some of my best and favorite moments of video games. And in my opinion, there's really not much to debate about that. From the moment that Asylum dropped and they proved that a Batman game could just be amazing and great, Rocksteady earned a level of trust that I think very few studios ever get. And they spent that trust on Suicide Squad, and now they have the chance to rebuild it. But granted, like I said, there's a lot of people that were a part of the Rocksteady Studios team that are no longer there. So can they make a Batman game? For sure. Are they going to be able to pull off an Arkham game? I don't know. But if they come back with a focused and beautiful and mechanically tight Batman game, the community will show up because that is what we want. A complete experience day one, no questions asked. I just want to see Rocksteady at their best and just get back to the peak that we all know and love from the old Arkham games. And in my opinion, this is not just a comeback for the studio. For Rocksteady, it has to be everything. Now, the wait's going to be long. 2028 is not coming tomorrow, but the blueprint is being laid right now behind closed doors. The studio that made some of the greatest superhero games ever created has something massive to prove, and I personally believe that they are cooking. But that's going to wrap it up with this video. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section. Are you guys team Roger Craig Smith returning as a younger Batman or even just an older Batman? Or are you team brand new voice actor for a clean slate reboot? Let me know down in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe with your noties on, and until next time, this has been Wes, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.